德玛西亚视频站，视频背景音乐、选手主播天赋符文、隐藏分查询，又在王者学堂，还等什么？赶快扫描微信二维码，关注我们微信吧！喜欢猫咪的你，就来关注我们微信吧。
Things to watch out for, because we saw the Varus pick go through as a big power pick for ESC that just didn't work out.
Yeah, well, the Varus pick, it is flexible. So even though it didn't work out in the bottom lane, I don't really attribute it to the pick itself, but more so rather how ESC chose to play the early and mid game and being extremely susceptible to the plays that Kongdu Monsters were able to set up. And so, I mean, here in the pick span so far, nothing too out of the ordinary except for that Ezreal ban. I feel that is completely out of left field.
Okay, yeah, we talked about the kind of the hierarchy of AD carries. I believe it was a round of 8 matches, and how Ezreal, you know, he's up there towards the top, but just nowhere near guys like Caitlyn, Jhin, all those power picks you expect to see.
Yeah, Caitlyn, Jhin are the king and queen of AD carry right now. We have seen Varus pop up. Ezreal is certainly there. He is one of the top ADCs, but to ban him is very surprising.
Yeah, a little bit questionable, taking him out, just not allowing him his counterplay. We'll see if that plays into this pick strategy as we are hopping into picks. It's going to be ESC Ever. Once again, on the blue side, of course, they did elect for this choice coming into this match. And again, it looks like another first pick, Olaf. This time around, we don't have any junglers taken off. There's that one Nidalee pick, you know, we've kind of seen it banned almost every single game over the course of this tournament, and it's just still out there. Instead, ESC Ever go for the Olaf.
Yeah, and if ESC Ever were going to start by trying to make their draft great again, it certainly does not begin with an Olaf pick, because that pick hurt them actually so much in last game because they couldn't do anything with it. And Punch has actually shown he is so adept at playing against it in the routes that are used to punish an Olaf. He's just displayed a very great understanding of that in all of his series.
Yeah, now Rek'Sai was a big pick for ESC Ever and Kongdu both in the last time they faced off earlier this year, and it just actually looked so good. Now the other problem, the problem with that is that, you know, it's not a pick that we're seeing out here. You're continuing to trust the Olaf. We'll see what else is comboed with that as we get further through the picks and bans phase. Looks like Orianna and now Sivir, the hover. Now, Sivir was the champion that Loken played every single game the last time these two teams faced off, but it's just not a champion in the meta anymore.
It's not currently a champion in the meta. I mean, a Sivir hover is a little bit questionable. It does have synergy with Olaf, but then that really tunnels ESC Ever's team composition into just an all-in glass cannon. And being forced to do that is probably not something you want to do when this is match point.
Now, you used to see a lot of move speed buffs comboed with guys like Olaf or Rengar, or back in the day, whenever you needed to get your jungler or any member of your team slingshotted in, that was what you went for. But instead, we're not going for an AD carry commitment just yet for ESC Ever, as they finalize their mid lane lock-in on that Orianna to take it away from Edge.
Yep. And so the Orianna pick definitely going to help them, certainly a lot more than the Cassiopeia was going to. Does have synergy with the Olaf to some degree, gives him the ability to run into the backline and get that ultimate off, and now we might actually see a mirror in the mid lane. And this is something that's always actually exciting to see in professional play.
Yeah, you get to see the anything you can do, I can do better idea, but on both sides, so it's doubly exciting to find out whether or not it was just the champion or the player that really contributed most to playing that 1v1 in game number 1, because that is certainly looking like the hover and a Poppy. Now, we've talked to, or heard from, rather, many top laners over the course of this series, and especially MVP's top laner, Ed, really highlighted how strong a champion Poppy is. It's locked in here for Kongdu Monster, who really, you know, get a champion that's incredibly powerful, yet very uncontested for the most part.
Yep. And, I mean, it basically is a question of can Crazy actually play Trundle, and Trundle one of the more popular picks against Poppy. And right now, I mean, with Jace having been banned, Jace not even really being a counter to Poppy, is a soft counter, pre-first item. And with Echo also off the table, you really have to question, you know, what is remaining. And it looks like the answer to that is a Gangplank pick. But Gangplank, that can get extremely scary when you're facing off against the Lee Sin.
I was actually worried it was going to be the Darius hover that Totoro had been hovering over for most of that pick phase. It is going to be the Gangplank in the end, and that signature Darius. So GP, I mean, that is going to be, you know, so that he can farm in a relatively passive matchup, theoretically.
Well, he can farm early on, and he certainly has the ability to bully a little bit, but as long as Roach is going to be able to time his auto attacks against the barrels, then Totoro, or Crazy, can fall a little bit behind any time that Punch is able to offer aid to him. And on top of that, it's way too difficult to actually find kills onto that Poppy for Crazy and Bless. And so because of that, we're probably going to see a lot of activity on the bottom half of the map again. We're probably going to see Punch play the exact same way.
Well, this time, KeSPA better know what's coming, because that really just had no answer in game number 1. What do you think about finalizing that lock-in with another Trundle support? Seems to be that, I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The strategy here for Kongdu Monster, we pick a relatively similar comp.
Trundle's a little bit interesting because it can really attack the positioning of Varus, and it can make it very awkward during laning phase for that Varus ADC. And on top of that, I mean, the Pillar, it is a terrain-altering maneuver, and that does also work against Olaf to some degree, because even though you may be immune to CC, you can't just pass through movable objects.
Well, you just saw KeSPA there on your screens. This is Kongdu Monster. Roach, Punch, Edge, Soul, and Goober poised to take out the favorites of the KeSPA Cup. And as a team coming straight out of Challenger, you know, having previously been in LCK, they qualified their way back. They're on this upward trend. They've got great communication. We're going to see if they can take it home here in game number 2. Hearing our crowd cheers, they are a little bit more distant, but there are many, many more faces. This is 4,000 plus auditorium, just absolutely filled with the best fans for some of the best teams here in Korea. Of course, as we move further and further in this KeSPA Cup tournament, we're starting to narrow down the field. And of course, after this series, we'll be one team closer to determining our finalists. KeSPA backs up against the wall on the blue side, facing off against Kongdu Monster in the red, who in this defensive fan look to maybe secure themselves, lock down their place in the finals.
Yep, and this is the most popular opening by all teams thus far this tournament. We did get to see a little bit of a crazy opening, or attempt anyway, maybe last game.
But
seems that everyone's just playing it safe. I mean, you don't want to try to do any sort of cutesy stuff against an Olaf, though. That can always turn out pretty bad if he manages to catch you with one undertow. It can end up resulting in you having to burn summoner spells.
Now, interesting to see, we got a couple of sustained starts up top lane. The Sapphire Crystal and Renewable Potion there for Crazy. Roach, of course, going for his Corrupting Potion. Just making sure that they have that sustained to get through the early lane. Anything that surprises you about the way that things are starting out so far?
Nope, everything looks pretty standard so far. And I just expect to see the same exact sort of openings by both junglers. And this is actually going to be more painful for ESC this time around, because Edge is going to be in the driver's seat now with that blue buff on Cassiopeia.
Now, one thing we're pointing out here, as you can see, is that, okay, well, we actually have to keep an eye out, like you mentioned, on the jungle route.
Yeah, I mean, already this game, Bless is actually starting off a little bit differently, and you have to wonder what that actually plays into. So, definitely, we have to watch out for the blue buff handoff. They did have a ward on the Wraiths, so they know that Punch is not going to be doing the Wraith Camp, so it's not going to be a full extender, but we have a trade happening.
Yeah, certainly a very big one. Zoned out there around the corner. Cougar barely able to avoid that Mantrid Soul Flare as it did come out and try to lock him down, but heavy trades in the bottom half of the map, though Cougar should be able to sustain through those. Loken might have a rougher time. Here comes Bless down here. Probably won't get too much accomplished, but what do you think the reason is for his jungle route that winds it up down on the bottom?
I think what ESC wanted to possibly do earlier on is it would have been advantageous for them to trade summoner spells really hard at level 1 or level 2, because then that directly synergizes with Bless's route, and if he makes his way down to bottom, he can outpace Punch and arrive there against the summonerless bot lane. Unfortunately, the extended trade they took wasn't quite hard enough, and thus Bless actually falls really far behind for taking the route that he did.
Wow, you can really see Loken and Totoro continuing to push that bottom lane really crazily. Soul and Cougar not having a whole lot to say about it, but they do have the sustain to keep themselves in it for a little bit longer. Oh my gosh, crazy poke coming out against Soul, who's walking right into it over and over again. So keeping an eye down there, but like you mentioned, Bless not having gotten anything done might put him further behind Punch, who we already saw what he can do with the lead.
Yep. And at this point, Punch probably feeling as comfortable as can be. And you can just see that Bless right now, he's not really doing anything. He's going to look for some activity here in the mid lane, but I mean, it's a... Okay, well, top lane really necessary.
That's where the action's at. Punch actually safeguarding in behind the turret. There's a flash for a slow there after the hammer shock, pushing Crazy back away, forcing him to flash. A perfect dodge there, maybe just out of range to get back to Bless. Safe and sound. ESC ever survive the first gank of the game.
Yeah, and that actually all ties into Edge having to use the Ghost earlier on. Otherwise, we could have seen a very chaotic fight actually break out in the left side river. Fortunately, Crazy doesn't die there.
Does put Roach back to base. He'll teleport back into lane. Crazy just got back from that exact same situation. So, wow, it's been really close there. What do you think about that Ghost in the mid lane for Edge? Seemed a little premature.
Yeah, that was certainly premature indeed, and I don't think that he actually needed to blow it. I definitely would have just preferred him to lose a little bit of HP rather than blowing that summoner spell. At the end of the day, it's not going to be the end of the world. He's not going to really be at risk given that he still has flash up. But given that he was already in a defensive position, he was intending on recalling soon anyway, it was just a little bit questionable.
It's down nonetheless. Ghost does have a relatively short cooldown, and this is a Storm Raider Surge Cassiopeia, so she will be able to get that extra movement speed even without the summoner spell when she does commit.
Yep. And now Punch moving his way down back to the bottom lane.
There's the exhaust on to Loken, certainly the target here. Cougar getting locked up there. Flash out from Loken, keeps him alive for now. Another counter flash there. Totoro gets back to the minion wave, tries to put some damage back. Bless comes down here for ESC Ever to maybe try to turn it around.
Yeah, Soul actually mismanaged that extended trade, not kiting as properly and making use of his passive to have the crit shot up. They missed out on a little bit of opportunity there, but nonetheless, they did drag Bless down to bottom lane.
And now Punch is off on his route. We'll run through a ward, so at least he's scattered as he makes his way towards Tempt. But out there, maybe one step ahead of the ESC Ever jungle.
Yep. And, I mean, Punch is pacing this game, and how well he's reading Bless and controlling the flow of the game is just basically what he's been doing this entire tournament. We also saw Punch actually have fantastic performances against even the likes of Score.
That series, if you guys didn't get a chance to watch it, was sort of the primer on how to carry your team on your back. Score insanely good for KT Rolster, but it just wasn't enough. And anytime you can withstand somebody who's that passionately carrying extremely hard, you've got some resilience to your team. So Kongdu Monster haven't really needed it. They've been in the driver's seat for the most part, and even with some struggles in game one, a top lane matchup didn't exactly go in their favor. This time, things look extremely solid.
Yeah. And I mean, this time around, Kongdu, you can see they're doing the same exact thing again. Lots of deep wards in on Bless's red side jungle. Punch up here in the top lane, though. This is primarily because it's a lot more easy to punish a Gangplank than it is in Aurelia.
Oh, Crazy does have a chain of barrels to try to get that movement speed, but no way out of this one. Does actually get the GPL to try to take Roach down. More barrels to come out. We'll see if Crazy can actually try to turn this one around. No, it's first blood. And it goes to Punch.
Yeah. Well, they managed to get the kill in the end, and now I wouldn't be surprised if Punch and Roach actually stay up and push, and it looks like that was what they were going to do. But take a look at the replay. Roach actually just wanted to scare Crazy. That's what was happening there.
Okay.
Punch arrives, kicks him with a dragon kick, and no aid was coming to Crazy, so he just tries to live as long as possible, inflict a little bit more damage on Punch, but unfortunately he still goes down in the end.
So nice punish now. Bottom lane's where the action is going to return us to. Googer does get lashed out there, but it's not been maxed, and so he's actually taking a lot of damage. Their axe comes through, but the undertow is not going to undertake him down, and Googer escapes just barely alive.
Yeah, and that's going to be good for Kongju Monsters yet again. Now, Bless able to clear out this pink ward. He's going to try to get some intel now on the blue buff of Kongju Monsters. That's something that Edge needs desperately right now.
Googer sticking around. That King's Tribute and Health Potions continuing to sustain him. Ward will scout out ESC Ever in the Kongju jungle, trying to take this blue buff away. We'll see if Googer and Saul can come try to stop him. A beautiful pillar, really isolating that. But there's going to be the Corrupting Chain coming out to lock him down. Loken coming out with the first kill there for ESC. Punch going to get in on to Blez, taking a lot of damage. That's going to be a Twin Fang to take him out. Tempto's still here, forcing double flashes from Kongdu. Yep,
double flash at the expense of getting the Olaf, but they did successfully defend the blue buff, which is extremely big right now. But Temp saying he's not done yet.
He still has that command shockwave, so a big positional controller. The blue buff's going to reset, and that means that Kongdu, once again, unable to take that one down. Now, they do restart it somewhat after it does stop regenerating, and probably will be able to secure it now, but at what cost?
Well, one of the interesting things there is they could have secured it sooner, but it looks like Punch did not want to have to use his smite on it. So actually electing to conserve the smite.
Oh, Totoro. Poor Totoro. There's the command protect. Kick away. The command shockwave hitting Punch, but it's not enough, and he'll find a 1v1 onto the ESC Ever support.
Yep. And now with Totoro going down, a little bit of crazy trades up there in the top lane. We see a ping go down onto Roach on ESC Ever's side, but I don't really know what that ping is supposed to mean, as it's unlikely that Bless is going to be able to make his way up there.
Punch, on the other hand, is already on that half of the map. Roach will recall, so not going to be the focus for now. Pretty insane to see how on top of things Punch has gotten ever since maybe a little bit of a rough jungle route from Bless. But oh man, actually almost coming back in. I actually thought Roach was headed back to base, but it looks like he was stopped, almost taken out. An ult for ult exchange. We're about to watch this pick onto Totoro once again.
Yep, so Punch manages to get onto Totoro using that red buff slow, keeps auto-attacking, and it's really good in the dragon kick, and follow it up with the Q. Now Temp, a little bit jealous that Totoro was getting all the attention, pulls Punch right back on top of him.
Yeah, mid lane, once again, the focus here for both sides. Temp pushed very low up out of mid lane. Of course, Bless won't be able to stay here for much longer if he tries to. That could be the danger zone. Still, minion wave will evaporate. Kongju looks to tank it up a little bit more. Roach, the one to do most of that. And now another wave coming in. Barrels put out. Crazy will try to clear that, and he does get a decent amount of damage done to keep the turret alive.
Yep, and that is going to be a victory right there for them. And now Crazy moving back up to the top lane. The problem is we haven't seen ESC really make use of this Gangplank pick at all. They haven't really had any synergy with it in other lanes. They haven't found a way to make it interact with any of Bless's aggressive plays as soon as it had hit 6. And so while it is still one of the scariest champions in the game, there is basically a saying that no champion can quite recover you from a 10k gold deficit as much as Gangplank. So far, they're not really utilizing him to his fullest.
Punch once again. Okay, Temp knows. He learned his lesson from game 1. You don't walk in to the deep, dark woods. Face checking didn't work out for him then, and it's nice to see his recollection of that, stopping him from face checking Punch and getting punched to death.
And now, oh, okay, Bless getting some ward coverage down. Unfortunately, he's going to give away his location. Now they know exactly where Bless is.
Cloud
he
Drake
walks over again.
Right, Cloud Drake first. How much do you think that really affects this early, like, 10 to 20 minute phase of the game for both teams?
Both teams don't really need it that much. It's basically a luxury for them both. Because when you look at it from ESC's perspective, you could argue that the Cloud Drake would be beneficial to an Olaf engagement or setting up position. But in reality, the way that they team fight and the way that they engage or disengage, it's not really going to matter that it's a Cloud Drake. Both team comps are actually ones that benefit from it.
All right, well, here comes the Gangplank ult used to cover other lanes for the first time this game. Bless running in, but he's got no support. They're finally a safeguard to keep him in a little bit of a better spot, but oh, Bless. He's actually going to try to make the best out of that situation, running all the way through the turret, trying to avoid everything. Another heal and another shield comes through, and Bless survives. I didn't quite see that exit plan, but he made it out eventually. No kills on either side, but low health bars on both.
Yep, and that was a little bit of a mini game down there in bottom lane.
Need that Benny Hill music. It's not a pre-planned route, but it does work out nonetheless. I hope we get a replay of that to watch it again.
Yep. Now Edge shoving Tempt in mid lane, and wouldn't be surprised if he just backs off after this and tries to get a little bit of vision control or maybe search out for some pink wards.
Ward hop over the wall. Here comes Punch in onto Loken. Gets the kick just for the confirm on extra damage. There's the last hit. Punch, the strong gets stronger. He'll take down Loken. And maybe Totoro next to fall here as well. Punch is just a monster at this point and only needs one more auto attack. They're actually going to funnel it and channel onto Edge. He will be the one to finally lock this one down. Totoro surviving. But like a caged animal, he gets locked up and taken out at the end. The Kongdu just monstering down this bottom lane to live up to their name.
Yeah, and I mean, ESC Ever trying to respond by capturing mid lane turret, but Kongdu monsters are going to get there in time. And now, Tempt and Bless in an awful spot right now. They're just losing ground basically everywhere. So checking out this replay again, Punch comes in, and I actually didn't think Loken would die to this gank, but he did surprisingly. Totoro wisely actually opted out of using the flash. I think that he knew that there was going to be a better time to use it in the future, and he didn't want to blow it then.
Back to live, red buff steal there for Bless, who's just desperately trying to assert himself out on this map. And when it comes to the jungle difference, you can really see it. Not just now, but maybe some deja vu here. It's the last time these two teams faced off. Punch actually just knocked Bless out. Final game, all came down to it, and Punch, I think he went like 6-1. Against him and just really asserted himself. That's exactly shades of the same thing this series, and that's got to deal a lot to the mental of ESC Ever, who really might just see the same thing happening to them again.
Yeah. And as this game's progressing forward, they do have a gangplank, but I can't really see a way for them to win the team fights when it starts approaching the 20-minute mark or so. And KeSPA already off to an enormous lead over Tempt, 600 gold lead currently in the mid lane.
Speaking of leads, I was definitely hoping that Punch was going to go that I'm super ahead peanut build where you just go back and buy the Dust Blade of Drakthar. Now, he's not quite on that level, so wisely going the tanky Lee Sin route, but still getting an incredible amount of damage done out on the map, stealing away that Raptor camp, putting himself into a much stronger position, not afraid to get in onto Bless.
Yep, and just constant bottom side vision control, and this seems extremely strategic by Kongdu Monsters, and the way that they're executing everything, very little top lane attention except outside of that gank that Punch made early on, and they're just completely eviscerating ESC with all of this bottom lane attention, and honestly, it looks like Loken and Totoro don't know how to handle it.
Now engaged as this turns from 2v2 into a 3v3. Punch with an exhausted kick on Totoro into the wall there, trying to get the damage down, but actually with a flash crit, it's not enough. Heal and shield will keep Totoro alive. The turnaround's real here as ESC start to try to get themselves back into this game. Teleport's canceled. as there will be no more top laners coming down here, but Tempt and Edge both trying to join this fight. Can they get into it? Goober disengaging to the top half of the fight, and a nice turnaround from ESC Ever.
Yeah, that was a fantastic turnaround, and it was mostly on the back of that Gangplank ultimate by Crazy. They're going to be rewarded with First Blood turret here, and that was basically everything that they needed to happen, and they got huge victories right there.
Oh, but maybe overextending here as Edge is making his way down with Goober to a weakened duo lane here. Totoro, Bless, and Loken trying to disengage here. Big pillar against the wall, nowhere to run. Loken, you are not making it out of here alive. Survey says you are out of there, and that's going to be a nice kill picked up by Kongdu.
Yep. And so right here, we're taking a look at the replay again, and Punch got exhausted for the kick to try to follow that up onto Totoro, but Totoro flashing away, and then Soul and Punch forced to retreat through a Gangplank ultimate. Wise teleport canceled by Roach, but you have to wonder why was the teleport even called at that point. And so KDM, Kongdu Monsters, they lose First Blood turret, they lost out on summoners in bottom lane, they dropped kills, and they lost teleport advantage.
Wow, a lot lost, not just in the kill count. It's easy to look up to the top of the screen and just see big numbers, but that doesn't tell the whole story. As now more turrets are starting to fall, that First Blood turret gold putting ESC up to a 1,000 gold lead, and now trying to look for the next step out on the map that may be shifting ever so slightly in their favor.
Now ESC probably just going to rotate to the mid lane, but we did see them keep Loken bot lane last game for an abnormally long amount of time. So maybe they opt to do that again, but I can't understand the reasoning for it. Nonetheless, top tier 1 turret has also fallen, and Crazy's basically going to be free farm mode now.
Gangplank, of course, farms up insanely well, so we'll see if that is maybe the insurance policy for ESC Ever. And it's actually kind of interesting to see the style of how this game has changed, just because in game number 1 we had 2 Inferno Drakes that were very high priority. This time we haven't had any Dragon focus at all, so all of the fights have been bottom lane, which really surprised ESC Ever. They didn't seem to know how to deal with that last game. This time around, that's where they find their biggest comeback.
Yep. And Roach looking for a solo kill.
Well, he's out of mana, but Crazy with a lot of extra movement speed will be able to run himself away. Roach does get a nice knockup. Crazy survives.
Gonna be forced to retreat probably after CS.
Crazy very, very low with no teleport, but he does have that cannon barrage if he wants to put it down. Now he could use it down here. A Dragon actually very low. It's actually smoked successfully there by Bless, who will use that Ragnarok and get a little bit of extra movement speed from that Monster Defiance. A perfect pillar. Oh my goodness. But a nice turnaround literally. His command shockwave comes out, and here comes the Gangplank gold from long range. It's actually Totoro to finalize the second kill. It's a 2-for-1. Dragon secured, and ESC Ever come out on top.
Yep, and ESC Ever picking up more kills and more gold also for Crazy up there. And that pillar, though, you have to hand it for Gugur because that was really impressive.
Actually insane, and really all game long, they've actually just looked so good. He's been locking ESC Ever down at every point. Soul has been finding great ultimates because of it a lot of times. We're going to watch this one more time.
Yeah, so it was successfully smited for ESC, and Bless, though, getting locked up right here. Now, a little late channel on the Gangplank ultimate, and I'm not quite sure what the reasoning was, but in the end, they managed to pick up Gugur and Punch, and that's, again, another giant victory for them. And so now, they're the ones with the gold lead. They've had it for a little bit, but we're starting to approach the mid into late game transition point, and Gangplank's starting to get extremely scary.
Yeah, another entire item completed here, and while there is nothing but armor being itemized there by Roach, I don't know, that's going to be still a rough matchup against the penetration. There's no lethality in League of Legends just yet. It's just that flat armor penetration, and will really help Crazy out there. Now, got to keep an eye on the rest of Kongdu, because now we get a chance to see how they play when they're not just continually getting win after win after win.
Yep. Now Crazy going to be the one moving into the bottom lane, and this is generally what you want to do, as the bottom lane turrets are the furthest objectives from Baron.
Cashing in, big money Gangplank down there. I'd love to actually get a chance to see exactly how much gold he does have, because he's been getting these huge barrel charge explosions. starting to get the gold further in ESC's favor. Every time I look at the gold to find out the difference, try to calculate that, I just always have to keep in mind, oh wait, one of their members actually just gets so much more than the rest.
And right now, ESC Ever just basically cleaning up lanes. They seem content to just keep letting this Gangplank scale because Gangplank, he is one of the champions that he puts your opponent on a clock. And so while ESC Ever were behind in the early part of the game, they've managed to stabilize here now in the mid part, and moving forward to the late game, Kongdu Monsters' advantages aren't quite big enough to really threaten this Gangplank anymore.
And we asked ourselves a couple of questions after game number 1. Oh man, Crazy, not afraid anymore. He's going to keep this coming and will continue to get right in onto Roach. A sick dodge, and he will be popping his ultimate right now. It's going to be popping Poppy to take a 1v1 kill over Roach.
Yeah, and that is the opposite of what is good for Kongdu Monsters, as they're probably going to lose their mid-tier 1 turret here in Punch.
Knows he's got some team to run back to, but just getting busted by Bless, kicked out of his own jungle when he's the one that's used to doing the kicking. So now with the curtain call channeled out here, catching Loken off to the side, a nice phase of corruption there, but it's a reverse kick onto Temp, getting him right back in the mid lane into another rough spot. A shockwave does finally hit, but it's not enough kill. Here comes the rampaging Bless, but in the end it's Crazy to find himself another kill, second in a row. He's trying to dive Googer, and it looks like he'll finally be able to get the kill. No, a bounce back there, a huge pillar, and a turnaround on the other side as well. Now Crazy, will he be able to find his way out of a very dangerous spot in the enemy jungle? It's Roach and Edge in onto Loken. Roach finding that kill, and Crazy unable to teleport his way out of the enemy side. Big crit from Soul leads to a full 5-man ace, as Kongdu Monsters dominate the fight to take a 12-7 lead.
And that might be the Baron for Kongdu Monsters. And that fight was so all over the place. You would need 4 screens to really watch what was happening. And Kongdu Monsters just out-microing and maneuvering ESC Ever in that super long extended trade.
Actually insane. I cannot wait until we get an opportunity to take a look at that replay. It does look like Baron will be taken here by Kongdu Monster. They don't have a smite to secure it, but it's on the way. Punch should get there just in the nick of time, and he will be able to smite it down at the last seconds to secure a 25-minute Baron for Kongdu Monster.
Yeah, and Dragon coming up in a minute here, and we're going to take another look at this fight. So you can see that Punch wanted to get in onto Loken. Fortunately, though, he was able to find an opening onto Temp, and Edge and Soul were able to take him down. They ate the shockwave, but Googer right here not quite able to go down, and then Bless split up his attention to try to go back onto Soul. So you can see Googer using the pillar, Crazy still taking tower aggro. Bless went a little too far forward, ran out of fuel. Teleport came in from Roach from behind. Loken, no mana, overextended. Totoro still has flash up, but it doesn't really matter in the end as Roach is on Poppy, able to keep chaining those slows. Meanwhile, up on the top half of the map, Googer was able to land another pillar and disrupt the teleport attempt from Crazy, thus securing the kill onto him, wrapping up the Baron for them, and now they're the one in the driver's seat, looking poised to take this Inferno Drake, but they still have to worry because Gangplank, he's still in the game, and gold deficits or not, he's a scary champion.
Every time it seems when we look bottom lane, Crazy is cashing in on huge minion waves. So even though the fights, at least that last one going Kongdu's way, even though they have this Baron buff, let's see how much of a dent Crazy can put in it.
A little bit of a siege happening right here. Edge taking away the blue buff is actually really problematic right now for ESC Ever. Temp definitely wants that sustain and the enhanced AP while trying to resist the Baron sieges.
Trying to pick less. The punch is going to go in. This will be the start of something. Call coming out, trying to get that damage down onto Loken. He's going to dodge a couple of those shots. Less though, chunked down to just about 1,000 HP and pushed back. While in the meanwhile, Edge is trying to take down this upper turret. He actually takes a lot more damage. There's a Gangplank all committed to it. Seraph's Embrace to speed himself away, or at least keep himself alive for a little bit longer. The Loken getting crit down underneath his turret. Roach just doesn't afraid of anything. He's taking up as many turrets as it takes for Kongdu to push on through into this ESC Ever base.
Yeah, and the stranglehold that Kongdu Monsters have on ESC.
just make it stop. They're already dead. He's finding one. He's grabbed himself a second. He's not yet out of there. Punch is not done, and he will survive to live another day. Seems as though Crazy so strong, but just not in every place at once. Kongdu crushed both top and mid for more kills, more objectives, and might even be taking this insane turret in the face. Crazy trying to go forward. He's going to grab one kill, survive alive until the last Twin Fang comes in to take him out. Now, Temp could take him out, but he doesn't turn it back around again. And that's that mirror matchup. Anything you can do, I can do better. And Temp just can't do it as well.
Yeah, and it just really seems the Edge has the edge in this mid lane dynamic. And Kongdu Monsters, they're not able to end the game or get the inhibitor right now, but they're going to recall, probably capture Baron. Blue buff just came up. Edge is going to get that again. And taking a look at this replay, Hunt finds his way in onto Bless. They pick up a kill onto Totoro. And then, unfortunately, Soul went a little too deep trying to get that final kill onto Tempt. It would be picked up later on by Edge, but nonetheless, I think it does actually result in their inability to capture the inhibitor turret. And I think they were maybe having their eyes set on the end game if they managed to get that kill. A little too greedy, and it ends up costing them a little bit, but it's not the end of the world. And look at that damage from Edge right there. Seems balanced. And the tower falls as they regroup.
Just incredible to get a chance to see that 1v1 that was so skillful by Edge in game number 1, avoiding that same Cassiopeia stun on Orianna. He is able to get it now, play Tempt in that regard, just saying, hey, look, in this situation, I am just straight up better. And it's very rare that you get a chance to really delineate that so exactly. Edge just coming up huge for his team, 6-0-3, as Punch, another big contributor there, takes yet another dragon for his team.
Yep, and right now, it's all basically a waiting game for ESC. They need to just keep waiting for Kongdu to bring the fights to them, and they need to find ways to win them.
Well, they have done that somewhat surprisingly in the past. Big turnarounds in the bottom lane, team fight wins around that dragon earlier. But this time around, things starting to get stacked against them as an almost 10,000 gold lead comes in, and this time 5,000 gold there in power play. A big improvement from the last one that we've seen is now Kongdu, just nothing to stand in their way.
Yeah. And now as they move forward, no Baron buff. Baron not coming up anytime soon, so it should be easy for ESC to defend at this point, unless they come for the mid lane turret.
And a lot on the line here for both teams. ESC fighting to defend what is a very rare legacy in League of Legends. Out of the challenger team, out of really obscurity. No one had really heard of ESC ever, or most of the players coming into 2015 KeSPA Cup. They exploded out of nowhere, took out SKT and TJ to win the tournament. This time, Kongdu Monster, maybe the ever version 2. As they come out of getting relegated into Challengers. They finally requalify from Challengers to make a big statement here in this, their first real tournament after requalifying for LCK.
Well, I mean, speaking about ESC2, I would have to say that Kongdu is actually way above that. Watching their games here, they look nothing like they did earlier on in the year. They look nothing like they did in the Challenger Series Korea. I actually got to watch a lot of their games in Challenger Series Korea, and they don't look like the same team. Their level of decisiveness, their speed at which they're executing plays, and their overall understanding seemingly of how to play the map is just so enhanced. And it's really a treat to watch because you don't expect this level of play from a team that you thought was going to come into this tournament and probably get knocked out first round. And to see them here making a run for the finals, I feel like the real test will be in the finals. How will they stack up against either the Rocks Tigers or SK Telecom? But so far, they're looking so good.
Now, you mentioned a big change to the line, to the previous version of Kongdu Monster. Coming into the last time these two teams faced off, they had both made the same kind of change. They swapped out their top laner. For ESC Ever, they swapped in Fire Trap for Crazy, and for Kongdu, they actually swapped in Roach for Hippo. Now, one of those changes stuck, and it looks like Kongdu has been the stronger for it, whereas Crazy coming back in, doing so well for his team, doesn't look like that was the problem, but still, what do you think is the biggest significant increase that you see here for Kongdu? Is, oh man, Tablet's actually going to get blocked off again by a pillar. This time, he can't actually run around it.
Well, I feel like one of the big problems that ESC Ever is having is that, at least in this series alone, Bless has been so constrained by Punch, and he's just outplaying him at every step of the game. And it also seems like Punch's understanding of the Lee Sin versus Olaf matchup is just on another level than actually I think I've seen from any jungler, including World's performances, at least in terms of how to move around the map and how to place your wards and play around those wards.
And really, when it comes to securing these advantages, knowing when to take these 1v1s, finding picks on champions that are just alone, Punch can really do it all. It's certainly a big asset to his team. Now, as the game does draw to what feels like it's Apex, I don't know about ULS, but it certainly seems like it becomes more and more difficult for ESC to understand these withering onslaughts.
Yeah, 10K or over 10,000 gold advantage set up. Gangplank challenge enabled.
And here's how you break the base. Curtain call in. It will finally land one shot in on attempt. But can they keep this turret alive? Looks like the answer is no. There's the Gangplank ult, but really not capitalized on for the most part. Roach coming in from the side there as Bless is forced to disengage. You can't knock him up, but you can take him down. Bless is out of there. Kongdu cracked his base and will be able to take out the second inhibitor. A big turnaround. There's Command Shockwave. It'll take out Edge before this fight really even starts. Punch going deep. He'll find a kill, but he will go down at the same time. It's going to be a 3-for-2 exchange in the fight overall there. But Logan getting crit down on his fountain. Totoro forced to flash back there as well. And Kongdu Monster will crack both Nexus turrets. The Nexus as well. And barring an insane comeback from Totoro's Karma, will be able to secure themselves a 2-0 victory over ESC Ever and punch their tickets to the finals.
Yeah, and Punch they were the way they will, and that was the same sort of an ending almost, as decisive of a game as game number 1, and just another extremely impressive performance by Kongdu, and I'm really, really excited to see what they're gonna do tomorrow.
And you know, you gotta really hand it to guys like Crazy, who looked consistently good in his matchup, but as far as teams came together, it was really all Kongdu. And you actually mentioned that when we were talking earlier about the way that they were developing as a team. If they played the same way that they did versus KT earlier, then really what can stand in their way? Well, they did, and we saw how dominant it could be.
Yeah, and there was no score this time to sort of keep his team in the game, and Bless just got dominated from start to finish in honestly both games. And you know, interestingly enough, Kongdu Monsters, they didn't just display a level of dominance over the Olaf pick, because I feel like that's actually what it came down to at the end of the day, is the jungle pick was completely neutralized and just destroyed by Punch's movements, but Kongdu Monsters warding as well. And the Trundle pick as an answer to the Olaf was also really fascinating to see, because that's something that Worlds teams didn't even come up with.
Actually really, really cool to see not only an interesting plan, but stellar execution on top of it. And when it came to execution as well, another way that we saw that was Temp versus Edge in both games 1 and 2. Just that anything you can do, I can do better attitude. Edge backed it up in big, big ways. And that means that we will be heading into a little bit of a recap to go over our 2-0 Kongdu Monster victory over ESC Ever to knock out the defending KeSPA Cup champions and take us into our MVP interview coming up next. So if you guys have predictions, guesses, you're there with your friends, and you think you know who the MVP is going to be, well, you better discuss it quickly, because that is where we are going. It does give you guys a brief reminder that our next best of 3 will be SK Telecom T1, defending world champions, taking on the Rocks Tigers for the second time in the semifinals. Let's take it over to our MVP interview. And here we go. All right, in case you guys have closed out your votings, that's going to take us into our MVP, Punch the Jungler for Kongdu Monster. Congratulations to you for your MVP. So, you know, every single one of your Lee Sin plays today was actually amazing. And Punch saying, you know, to be honest, I didn't think it was the perfect pick. So he thought, you know, maybe I should just try this, but in the end, everything worked out. So when you look at the KeSPA Cup, Punch, your Lee Sin really looks like an S-tier pick. But on the other hand, how would your Lee Sin compare to some of the other players who have played Lee Sin in the tournament, specifically Peanut, who he might have to face off against later? And Punch says, you know, I was watching the Jin Air versus Rocks game, and Peanut's Lee Sin really took over the game all by himself. Although he does add that, you know, I think I'm still comparable to Peanut's Lee Sin. So there's Peanut. What do you think about Helios' Lee Sin? Obviously, Helios, one of the other Korean casters who we'll be seeing later on. And Punch saying, you know, I've watched a lot of Lee Sin players, and, you know, I gotta say I was motivated and inspired by Helios a lot. Of course, you know, we're not sure if that's the good kind or the bad kind of motivation, but nice to see him noticing Senpai Helios. Now, for the fans and viewers who aren't familiar with a team called Kongdu Monster, could you spare some words to talk a little bit about the differences and the changes that have come to Kongdu Monster? And Punch saying, you know, earlier on in this year, in the spring season, Kongdu Monster was really, to be honest, a free win for a lot of the teams that played against them. But after I joined this team, I really feel like a lot of things changed. So really kind of pointing towards himself for a lot of the big changes in the team. So you are making your way to the finals of the 2016 KeSPA Cup. Anything you'd like to say to your fans? And Punch saying, you know, our opponents are either the Rocks Tigers or SK Telecom T1, who are, you know, very hard opponents. But I really want to prove that we're the type of teams that can brush shoulders with this caliber of team. So that is going to do it for our MVP interview with our Kongdu Monster MVP Punch. Congratulations to them for their 2-0 victory over ESC Ever, the defending champions. This is going to take us into our next best of three, SK Telecom T1 facing off against the Rocks Tigers, so you do not want to miss that. We'll be taking a brief break before we come back for our final semi-final of the night. So don't go anywhere, stick around, and we will be right back with our final best of three of the night between SK Telecom T1 and the Rocks Tigers.